Hello, hello, and powerful full moon blessings to you. This was way too important to wait, so I wanted to jump in here quickly and just talk to this common question that's coming up. I'm certainly feeling a really intense push towards stopping that pattern repeat of old cycles, and just how intense the energies have been over the last couple of months leading up to gosh, what are we, 7 planets in retrograde right now, and really an incredible opportunity that I don't want you to miss, to start to look at how do you love yourself no matter what's going on around you, and where a lot of these shame patterns are coming up again, and what you can do. So some pragmatic medicine tonight, as it is Truth Bomb Tuesday, and the power of choice is always you, on how you can actually start to get clear on the path that you are on, right? The trajectory to get back in alignment with your North Star, with your soul's calling, and why we really need to look at the ancestral inheritance. And also, gosh, just kudos to you to being here. These are brutal times, and it's not easy to stay the course. But when we can start to embrace these not only your own cellular memory and your genetic code, but also your psychic DNA strands. This is all the work that I've been doing with so many brave people this past couple of days, on not just looking at the cellular memory, so the DNA, RNA, LNA, the genetic code, but also the psychic DNA strands that may be still running on you, and how you can start working with your ancestors and owning your part in, what do you really want your life to look like. So many times we say, yeah, I really want this, and I'm tired of repeating the past. And I think the simple remedy to that, right, the antidote to all of this, is that you actually have to have some accountability. You have to demand to do something different. And it is uncomfortable. It is painful to do this really deep, gritty work and go into the dark night of the soul of not knowing, who am I? I certainly have felt that again, where everything that I identified myself with in who I'm becoming has to almost go back, hit reset, and look at how can I begin a nurturing relationship to heal this self-love deficit disorder. How can I actually be in right relationship with my own soul's desires, in the unknown, right, of not even knowing who you are moment to moment, and not to go into more dissociation at the level of your nervous system. When we're in shock and trauma, we dissociate, right? We want to forget our past. We want to stop going back into the nightmarish dreaming awake that so many of us are going through right now, and to look at our history, right? Not from a hysterical point of view of trauma, drama, and emergency, or repeating those old patterns, but in real reverence and honoring of our history, and understanding and knowing where we came from, right? In differentiation. That's the difference of owning that you get to create something different, doing things differently by knowing where you come from, the good, the bad, the ugly, and where we formed who we are in our value system, in our trauma patterns, in our protective and defensive attachment wounds. That's where we get to know our confidence, or the lack of it, and claiming it by feeling through the pain of the trauma, the loss, the grief of the past, that perhaps our ancestors, if we're feeling it right now, validating that our ancestors didn't have the capacities and the gifts that maybe we have to stop those trauma patterns, to heal from it and build it up in our own nervous systems, in our physical bodies, which are the ones that feel the pain. So first step, how do you change this, in answering that question that keeps coming through during the week in the private emails and in some of my forums, is that you have to claim it so that you can start to turn off or on. Sometimes we need to turn those epigenetic markers on, not just in the physical form, but in the psychic, right? In the crystalline form, where it hasn't maybe realized or turned on some kind of chronic healing crisis in order to get your attention, but by being present to learn from your history. And I think it's really time to do things differently. And we're certainly being forced into that. I know in my own life right now, certain things have come into play that I am not consciously choosing. But if I'm really willing to have a sense of humor about this, I started this 9 years ago. And now that it's coming up, I've got to go, wow, well, I asked for this. How do I hold myself in doing something different? And, this is where no modality, no 12-step program, no law of attraction that says you've got to leave your past in your past is going to change it, because we have to integrate our past first. We can't change what we don't acknowledge, and we have to own it first. So in doing that, I say this over and over again, don't make anything bigger than you and your current reality. And honor where you came from. Know that there is psychic DNA encoded in your system from your ancestors, and also encoded from all of humanity, right? In the consciousness, in the morphic field of human beingness, we have to bring that in too. And, I see that psychic becoming physical every single day in my practice, because people often come to me as a last resort, because it doesn't matter what they're doing, they're still in pain. They're still manifesting some kind of chronic dis-ease. I had a client just yesterday who has had a double mastectomy, that has had a story of incredible loss. She's lost her mother and her grandmother to cancer. And when we look back on that trauma pattern and acknowledge that it was there, and that she had the resilience and the stamina and the capacity to stop that cycle of not being nourished, not being safe to have a voice, not being able to be a powerful woman and speak her truth, because there was a lot of persecution. It kind of reminded me, and we talked about this, why movies like The Handmaid's Tale are coming up, that it's up to us to stop that, to stop the oppression of the divine feminine, not just for ourselves and where it's running in our own lives, but where it's running on the collective. So, I just want to send out such big love to any of you that are working your way through some of these trauma patterns and stopping them now. Just like my client who has endured incredible pain and loss and grief, but she's claiming back her power. And it starts by recognizing that we all have cellular memory in our cells. It's ancestral DNA. So a lot of this past life regression, and I don't do past life regression for that very reason, is that it's not a regression. It's you reliving a trauma again and again and again, because your cells are starting to talk to you. It's not a past life. It's your cells expressing in this present moment that something has to be done differently. And, bringing that back into this Capricorn lunar eclipse right now, the energetics, right, the morphic field, all that supports us, the divine feminine, Pachamama, it's highlighting the misabuse of the old patriarchal system and these old powers, right, in that low 3D earth plane. That were very egoic, that were very controlling, just like that Handmaid's Tale, which is why I think so many people resonate with it. That it's a dominant force that's being exerted on others, and where we are believing that we do not have the power to change it. So I'm not saying this is easy work, but if we can access that 5D earth plane, power is the light, and the light is within you. So the more light that's flowing into your field right now, the more light that you are radiating in your truth, in taking a stand, in doing things differently, you are part of this change, just as I am. And it is painful. but it's also temporary, right? We don't have to stay in a suffering state if we're getting the lessons and starting to implement a different way of being in the world. And instead of putting all your energy leaks, the energy management, the energy hygiene is bring the power back, focus inward, so that you start to fill yourself up with your own soul's divine plan and empowerment. And tonight is a very powerful full moon lunar eclipse. And it is aligning with all this hype 2020 astrology that whatever shows up at this eclipse is a precursor, a purveyor of what you will be dealing with during the Saturn-Pluto event on the 12th of January 2020. So why not start the work now? You are ready. You wouldn't be part of my tribe if you weren't. So ask yourself, who am I being in this moment? So that any lingering issues that are coming up for review, you don't dissociate from. You start to differentiate and be the difference of healing some of these unresolved core wounds, these emotional reactions and karmic patterns that are being triggered in all of us right now that are really calling us into introspection so that we can begin clearing and healing that by first acknowledging that they're there. And I love that about Capricorn, that it's a very earthy yang energy that is available to all of us to activate the visions and the dreams and the desires to become more grounded and earthbound. And we had, I think, 5 sentient beings show up in the weekly energy spiritual forecast. So if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to the weekly spiritual energy forecast and the medicine that was offered up to us from Earth Pig and some beautiful animals this week that's saying, stop the crap. It stops with us. It's time to do things differently. If we're going to begin this unification process with Gaia's ascension, we are of this earth, and in accessing our own true nature, we remember the oneness and contribution that we are as part of nature. We tap back into the heart, we tap back into empathy. So, if you have a habit of saying yes when you want to say no, if you find it difficult to sort of shake off the worry and you're going into some of these obsessive compulsive patterns of addiction, if you're criticizing yourself when things are going wrong, if you're going into lambasting and self-shredding and judging the crap out of you and you're having a hard time letting it go, or you're going into those obsessive, overfunction, perfectionistic patterns that I know really, really well, and you're automatically jumping into rescue and help when any issue arises for someone around you. Remember, an issue is an assignment. It is given to you. It is not of you. So yes, there are a lot of these habituated responses that maybe you are starting to connect the dots of that have been going on for longer than they need to. Big breath, give yourself a big energetic hug and love the parts of you that are ready to let them go, and love the parts of you that are afraid of what that might be, because there is no identity anymore, because there's no attachment. You don't know who you are yet. And I kind of feel like that, the luminal space of having one foot in the old paradigms and the other not quite in what is coming into being. And I think that's what the lunar eclipse is really inviting us all into, is to acknowledge first, give reverence and gratitude to our ancestors that walked before us, that didn't have the resilience that we have now to actually heal some of these patterns, and then release them, integrate them and release them, so we can bring closure to the things and the habits which are no longer serving us individually and as part of the collective. So ask yourself, who am I this minute, and then the next and the next, in co-creation, in intuition, in the spiritual technology that is available to us, in seeking out our belonging of who is my family, whether that's bloodlines or the collective family, the soul family groups, and then do the 1 degree shift, pivot to opening up intuitively to be your ideal mother, father, God within, the home archetype of creating safety and belonging from this new difference, this new place of being, that don't require us to sacrifice and struggle in the misidentification of sacrifice being giving yourself up, but from the sacredness of where the true definition of that word comes from, of sovereignty and of activating our psychic DNA, not from the old survival strategies and protective patterns that aren't helping us now. It's interesting. The German word Traum comes from dreaming, right? And so many of us have been living this nightmare of nightmare awake, where we're hooking back into these old patterns. So if we're going to move back into being, right, in the dream state of being the bridge of heaven on earth, we have to go back into the mystery school of reshaping the psychology of the dream. And in order to do that, we first need to have a conversation with the spirits in limbo. You can't just clear out entities. You have to ask them why they're there. They don't know that they're not embodied anymore. And they're there for not only our learning, but for them to be able to go back into spirit. So they're not haunting and terrorizing us anymore. So before you ask them to leave in a loving way, ask them what it is that you need to know. And thank them for the gift of that. In my entity clearings, I always say, thank you. Thank you, but you're not welcome here anymore. And when we're cleared that and we are owning our own physical bodies, then we can start to look at family of origin, of where we're sourced into that expression of worthiness in our value systems, in our worthiness, right? In our sovereignty. And we can't access that if we're not looking at our historical patterns of believing and truly knowing that we are enough. We've always been enough, and that everything else is just bad programming. And it had its place then, but it doesn't have its place now. And it's only in the pain of the past, in the infinite possibilities and infinite quantum strings in the theory of everything, that we get the power of choice back. So I invite you tonight, go sit on the ground, go lean against a tree and ask yourself, what do you know is running on your family lineage that you have come here to heal? Where have you activated that psychic DNA on the history of your bloodlines that are manifesting now based on your own unique woundings? And are you asking for more of the same? Or are you willing to commit and make the demand to do something different beyond the history, the hysterical trauma patterns and the copings and the addictions? So ask yourself, what is in your quantum field now that you can access? And really go to the root cause of that, the pain, the patterns, the traumas. Just scan your body systems now, your body's head, countenance, and endeavors, all of you. Just feel it in your body and get really honest about how are you handling them? Are you willing to start to be this beautiful alchemist that can connect the dots and see the connections, and then acknowledge that unless somebody else in your family integrated it already, that you're taking that on in your soul contracts to heal and stop those patterns of abuse on your intergenerational and ancestral family lines. And I think this is where it can be really useful to do one of those DNA ancestry tests. If you don't know where your family of origin comes from, I think it can be very helpful to own the trauma history of where your ancestors came from. And in that, asking, how can you honor everything you have also been through in your own life? So you have all of that, but you also have your own experiences being embodied in this lifetime. And just give yourself a big energetic hug, because it takes guts and glory and soul stamina to be here right now. I would be lying if I said there were moments when I thought, oh my gosh, this is too painful. I can't bear it. I can't tolerate it. I'd rather check out. But it's kind of difficult to go back to sleep when you're doing work like this. And there's a humanness to it that would rather spiritually bypass it. So own those parts too, and take a moment to just drop into your life and appreciate all that you have survived to get to where you are right now in the present. Honor your resilience in the present. Love whatever arises now in that millisecond before you start putting unconditional, unrealistic expectations that you can never ever attain. All those decisions and judgments and conclusions. And remember too, that if you can't love yourself right now, where you are in the present, call in spirit, call in the divine, call in mama, right? The great mother, the great father, mother moon, grandfather sun, to show you and to love you unconditionally until you can love yourself. Because it's not always easy to know that you are enough, that you always have been enough. But if you can just take 1 degree shift, 1 second more than you did yesterday, to love yourself as enough right now, living your life as you're living it, and remembering that the best way to grow, especially those scared little child parts, is to lead by example. Be the example of love now. You want to heal the wounded child parts. Stop abusing and hurting yourself now. Stop self-shredding now. Be the example of love. And also know, this was the trickster prankster energy that came up with coyote medicine for the week. It's not always obvious. They're called blind spots for a reason. And we don't always see because we're so used to abusing ourselves and self-shredding and judging the heck out of us, all which are acts of violence against ourselves, all which create that self-love deficit. Call in your troops, call in your helping spirits, call in your ancestral helping spirits, because I don't know what this is going to look like for you. I hardly know what it's going to look like for me unless I drop in and ground into asking for support, asking for love to show me what it needs to be. Right? Ask yourself, what would love do in this moment when you are going into the what ifs and the shoulding and the coulding and the shaming and the blaming? And you might want to watch my video on what shame really is, because that's how you keep tripping yourself back into the pattern repeat, back into the trauma patterns. You keep calling it back in, and you keep yourself deficit, right? Longing, starving for touch, starving for connection, starving for love. So how do you start to change that? Well, you start making different choices, even when they're uncomfortable. And that's the hardest. It's easy to make different choices when life's going the way that you want. But right now, I raise my hand. I bow down. Because I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. And I can love that too, and so can you. So give yourself permission to feel everything that it is, all the loss, all the grief, all the trauma. Own it. You get to have that. And you also get to tread really gently on yourself, because we don't live in a culture that values the gifts and the lessons in grief. We're not taught the value of those times and what choices we need to make. Grief is a powerful medicine. Loss is also. And when you can be in that holding space, in that waiting room, this is where I also laugh at the idea of words of deadlines, or that time is limited, because we live in a time where time is a construct. We only have a certain amount of time in the day because we're hooked into that reality. But if you can push pause on the world and give yourself the space to integrate grief and loss and metabolize it on a very visceral, somatic, Soma, body, right? The body is what holds the trauma. When you allow your body the time and the space to be with that now, when you become sovereign to owning all the parts and pieces of yourself in the grief, in the loss, it becomes very intuitively coordinated, beyond rules, beyond constructs, beyond the fear of what if. And then we get to follow what's true for us, moment by moment, in the present. So name what it is for you. And if you can't identify or name it, just know, oh, there's that old pattern. There's that old program of identity, right? Where you're afraid to own it by naming it. Because if you name it, then you're responsible for it. You're responsible for your life and the choices that you make. So respond to it. Respond by asking for support if you need it, for more grace, for more ease, for your helpers and your friend and your energetic and your physical helping spirits, your team players, to show you when you can't see it for yourself because you're in your blind spots. And then you can start to get clear with yourself about what you need. And it starts by owning your past. And you need to know that there is no killing yourself, no deadlines to get you out of something quicker than is necessary. Sometimes grief requires us to stay in the waiting room and to get really, really present with what is required of you there. So, thank the people in your life and the people that have gone before you and the things that are triggering you right now, because they're showing you where your needs are not being met. And give yourself permission to grieve, permission to get angry. Because the permission of owning all of you, that gets you in the now, it gets you in the present. And instead of dimming your light, instead of saying I'm fine when you're not, you get to illuminate your light and you get to do things differently. So quick recap, because I know this was a lot and I have 5 minutes before my client, but feel your feelings. You have to feel in order to heal. Know that you're never going to be perfect. Perfection is another program that keeps you hooked back into the shame and blame game. It keeps you from being who you came here to be. It gets you hooked back into knowing that you do not have the power of choice to do things differently. So the message is in the mess. Let it be brutal and beautiful and whatever it needs to be on your own terms, not on the terms of anybody else. Trust what you know. Don't even trust what I know, right? Trust what you know. Follow your body's natural impulse and your innate ability that is in yourself, in your divine blueprint, to be present in the pain, in the challenges, in the anxiety, in whatever it is. Just start to feel all of it out and start where you are now. That's all we got, is this moment. Stop thinking, stop wishful thinking, stop analysis paralysis, stop hoping and dreaming. Own it and then do it. Do something differently in the presence of love. Ask, what will love do? And be present with that. Don't force your body into big change. This is when we flood our nervous system and we go back into the trauma patterns. Let your body be your guide. Let your nervous system know its upper limits. And ask, how much can I tolerate? How much can my body tolerate? And then go there, because it's in the, I always say this, inch by inch is a cinch, yard by yard is hard, right? Even if it's just 3 words for now, and then 3 sentences of truth tomorrow, and then a paragraph the next day, and then maybe a page the next day. Write your book of life. You are the author of your own life. Be your authority. Claim your sovereignty. And when you do, when you go at the pace of your body, not at this mind that's shutting you out of everything and shaming you into playing a small game, when you just start, those minutes become those seconds become minutes, and the minutes become hours, and the hours become infinite space of creation, infinite possibilities. And who knows? You might just begin to heal. You might become whole. That's all healing is whole living, red, hot, and holy. So love yourself no matter what. Remember, the power of choice is yours and yours alone. And I'd love to know in the comments if this resonates with you, if it's stirred up your heart's desires. I'd love to know what one step, let me be witness, if you cannot be witness to loving yourself right now. Let me hold that space for you as a fierce medicine guide to show you the beauty and the love and the belonging that you are. And if nobody told you today, seriously,